I was born to parents who were young. They were late teens. Finances were a struggle.
I was nervous to tell her about jumping out into an independent firm.
Living in constant fear of, I gotta get this deal across the line. All I heard across the board was more. Never contentment.
God owns everything that we have.
Welcome to the first ever Full of Grace Financial Podcast, where our mission is planning with purpose, stewarding with grace. I am the founder, Josh Salway of Full of Grace Financial. I'm joined by my partner in crime, Luke McQuaid, and we're excited you're here to join us. Our vision for this podcast is that it will provide you with some tidbits and direction and some guidance on aligning your faith with your finances, and back that with scriptural references and biblical values. Every episode, to lighten the mood and to keep things fun, we'll share a fun fact. Today's fun fact is youth mission trips are not for the faint of heart. At 45 years of age, I just returned from a youth missions trip with our church, and what fun it was, what joy in being the hands and feet of Jesus and serving. But also, Luke, I'm figuring out that I'm maybe a little too old to be hanging out with teenagers day and night.
Hey, I'm sure they enjoyed the old soul of you, but also the young, fun spirit. You also had a son on the trip with you, Everett, correct?
Yeah,
Was
that's
it fun
right.
connecting with him on that as well?
Yeah, it was great. It was fun to serve with Ev, and maybe not so fun to sleep on an air mattress 5 nights in a row and get about 3 hours of sleep. But I was hanging in there strong until about Wednesday night, Thursday morning, and then it was a desperate survival to get out.
Yeah, that makes sense. What were some of the main things you did while you were in West Virginia? I know you mentioned tiling of the floors, but what were some other things that you guys completed there?
Yeah, we had a pretty sizable group of about 24 high school kids. They split us up into groups, and we did a lot of different things. Some of them hosted a local VBS for a couple of the churches. I was on knee pads and hands for 3 straight days tiling a large room, and my back and knees were feeling it by the time it was over, but it was a great time.
That's great. Okay, so let's jump into the purpose of this podcast. You mentioned it a little bit at the beginning, but what is the purpose? What are we trying to do, reach our audience with this podcast? Yeah,
I've been excited about this project for quite a while. It's been something that's been on my mind for probably 2 years, but when the Lord called me out of corporate America into launching Full of Grace, one of the things that resonated in my head that he was calling me to do was to educate the masses. I feel like, I've been through high school, several college degrees, probably more than I'm proud of. And I just didn't know. I didn't know anything about finances. So our goal for this podcast is to provide the people in our circle and outside of that, hopefully we can have a big reach with guidance and tips and advice on just how to make sure they're being good stewards with what they've been entrusted with when it comes to their money.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I think we're taught so often to just accumulate as much as we can for retirement. And then you get to retirement and you just have this big sum of money. But what have you actually contributed to your legacy and your family and your kids? And I think another goal we're trying to show people is that God owns everything that we have, and we just need to remember that and just live that out, essentially. So
yeah, and I think also the fun topics of debt, how to invest, insurance. Our goal for this podcast is to be a resource and hopefully give people some guidance and direction in their own personal lives and plans.
Yeah. So give me a little bit of your background, Josh. So where did you start out coming out of college? Where did you start out? And then how did you end up starting Full of Grace? I'd love to hear a little bit about that.
Yeah, I'll go even a little earlier than that. I'll keep it 30,000 foot view because I'm old, so we don't have enough time to cover everything. But I was born to parents who were young. They were late teens, high school age. And it has led me, through childhood, adolescence, and teenage years. Finances were a struggle. I was blessed in that I had parents and grandparents that loved me, and I didn't go without much, but it just seemed like money was an obstacle. And so that is kind of, something I've struggled with and battled through the high school years and early college. fast forward, I graduate college, I marry my high school sweetheart, and now you're putting your finances together with someone else, right? So we were fortunate enough to be invited to a financial peace course at our church that led us to completely changing the trajectory of our finances and how we dealt with and felt about money. And so that kind of launched my career into the personal financial industry. I left teaching. I was teaching high school, college level engineering courses for about 14 years and jumped out into personal finance. And so I got to see the good, the bad, and the ugly of the corporate side of that, working for a couple larger firms. I knew that I enjoyed financial planning and giving advice. I didn't always enjoy the extra things that came with the corporate space. So in 2023, the fall of 23, my wife and I felt like the Lord was calling us to do something greater and to go beyond the conversations of accumulating more with people and stepping away from the worldly view and what society tells us is financial success and diving into the deep end of the pool of where God wants us and how to best steward the resources and the money he's given us. So in the fall of 24, I resigned my big fancy corporate job that my 10-year-old self probably would have said was a dream job to do what God was calling me to do. And here we are 2 years and 2.5 years and some change later with Full of Grace Financial and serving 80 client households and providing scriptural financial planning that's biblically based to help others align their faith with their finances. It's been quite a journey.
Yeah, that's really cool. I'm sure it is different being able to pray with clients, implement scripture. While that wasn't necessarily prohibited at these other firms, it probably wasn't encouraged. So now you can implement that into your practice.
Yeah, I mean, you actually in corporate space, it was prohibited. It wasn't, they weren't big fans of that.
Sure.
I did it anyway at times when I felt the need, but yeah, it's definitely been a big shift.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I guess I'll go into a little bit about my background into where I was and then how I joined Full of Grace. I actually started out at the same firm as you. You were a part of the team that hired me on. I guess to back up a little bit, I went to Grace College and I grew up in a Christian home as well. So biblical beliefs were always a big part of my family, and honestly, the conversation behind finances, it was tied in with faith. So I knew that's what I was kind of looking for down the road. So I went to Grace College. I met my beautiful wife, Lena, there. And so we then moved down to Ohio. I was a sports marketing major at the time, and I was getting into the long hours of working sporting events, and it quickly was shown to me that I probably didn't want to be doing that. Just the late nights, Lena was home by herself, and I just wanted to be around on weekends and stuff like that. So I decided to look more in the financial world, and that's where I got connected with you, where you were interviewing me, and I got hired on there and actually worked kind of closely with you for about 6 months, doing some financial planning for you and working alongside of you a little bit. And then once you decided to leave, I started wrestling a little bit with the corporate world as well. And we were having conversations in 2024 about why you left. And I really was encouraged by your faith and you and Carrie's faith of jumping out of the boat, just trusting that the Lord's going to take care of you. That was such an encouragement for me and something that I wanted to be like in the future as well. So we started having conversations in 25, the summer of 25, and then January of 2026 is when I hopped on with Full of Grace. A lot of the same reasons as you. I wanted to be able to implement faith into the conversation, pull scriptural references into the planning, and just be a resource for people. And quite frankly, I didn't want to serve 300 client households. I didn't think that would be white glove service that I heard you talk about so much. And I was just really wanting to get into that and serve about 50 to 60 clients, meet with them twice a year, and honestly serve them super well.
Yeah. What's really cool is we didn't know it at the time, but when I left that large wirehouse firm, I was praying that God would reveal a way for
Mm.
me to, have you join at some point. But also your wife, Lena, was praying for that too. And we didn't know it, but it's just kind of cool to see how God has tied all this together.
Yeah, she mentioned that right after I had coffee with you the summer of 25. I was nervous to tell her about jumping out into an independent firm. And she was like, honestly, I knew this was going to happen at some point. I felt the Lord leaning us that way. And I just felt at peace about it. And so I thought I was going to have to go into that conversation and convince her like, hey, I think I need to jump out and go with Josh and Full of Grace. She was all in and she just felt so much peace about it. And that was so encouraging.
God had already done the work on the front end.
Absolutely.
Thankfully.
I think she had met you again at an airport. You guys were on the same flight.
Yeah, absolutely.
And she said, that was the time I knew like you were going to be working with Josh. That was probably 6 months to a year prior to that. And she had been praying for a year and just that he would make the timing clear.
Yeah. Yeah. That's cool. That's fun stuff.
Yeah. So the last thing that we kind of want to talk about here is who do we serve? So who are some of the clientele that we're looking to serve? Obviously it's a pretty general clientele, but kind of who are you looking to serve with your book?
Yeah, I think, obviously in future episodes, each episode, we're going to try to break down a financial planning concept or a resource or provide something. But on the front end, with this being the first recording of the show, it's really important for us to share with our audience, like, who are we? What are we looking to do? But more importantly, how might we be a good fit for them as listeners, right? And so one of the biggest drivers for me leaving the corporate financial planning space was that constant chasing of more. Not only, talking to clients about and trying to encourage them to save more, invest more. Not that you don't need to save and invest, but as advisors and business owners and firm owners, all I heard across the board was more, never contentment, right? And so when I jumped out on my own, one of the biggest reason was when I left the large wirehouse firm, I was the financial advisor, quote unquote. I say that very loosely, for 388 households.
Wow.
Now, I am pretty good at math, but there's 365 days in a year. How in the world was I ever going to effectively serve 388 households? It wasn't going to happen. I wanted to get to know them. I wanted to get to know their kids. I wanted to know their life. I wanted to know their story. I wanted to spend time with them. And I wanted to be able to respond to an email and a phone call when they reached out. And so our focus at Full of Grace is we serve 50 client households or less per advisor. And we do it well. We meet with clients multiple times a year. We meet in the spring and fall, but we hear from them around tax time. Everybody loves tax time, right? We might be communicating with their CPA, whomever that might be, around tax planning and strategy. We help with estate planning. We're frequently in conversation with clients. It's probably at least once every quarter, if not more. So the whole goal of Full of Grace is to actually make sure that we know what contentment is for us as a business, and we can pass that on to our clients. So our four core values are faith, first and foremost, family. It's important that we have time to spend with our families, but also clients don't lose sight of those they love the most. Fulfillment. Where does that joy and contentment come from for us and our clients? And then fiduciary service, which should go unsaid, but unfortunately in our industry, there are a lot of advisors slinging products around that may not always be in the best interest of the client. So we designed our firm to be fee only, which means we're always upfront about the fee you pay us. That fee is not tied to a commissionable product like a life insurance product or a commissionable investment. We want clients to know that we are giving them value above and beyond what they're paying at Full of Grace, but they are going to pay us. We are a for-profit business. We have families to take care of, financial goals to meet. But yeah, that's the focus. When I started Full of Grace, to be quite honest, I thought I would just stay in my own little bubble and find my 40 to 50 client households that I love to work with. And God had much bigger plans as we've exploded from 0 to 80 client households in a little over 2.5 years. And I'm excited to see where he takes it and where it goes.
Yeah, going back a little bit to when you had 388 client households, I mean, how was your family life then? So now it's a core value of Full of Grace. How did that affect your family? How did that affect Carrie, your wife? And did that take a huge toll on you and your
Yeah.
family?
Yeah, it had a profound impact on my relationship with my wife, my kids, others. When you're working and grinding, as they would call it, it used to be a badge of honor. Now, I hate that term. I don't use it. You're trading time for money in the corporate space. And so it led me to working long hours, very rarely clocking out, checking my phone, my laptop, definitely well after business hours. Just fear, living in constant fear of I gotta get this deal across the line. I gotta make this person a client. Again, more, right? Contentment is never there. Um, and so jumping into Full of Grace, like Peter getting out of the boat
Hmm.
when Jesus told him to jump out, just jumping in head first in my case, not knowing exactly what the Lord had in store, has been a blessing and provided me opportunity to have, they call it work-life balance. I call it work-life integration because what I do now as a financial planner is a big part of who I am. And my wife and kids now love and appreciate that because there's a healthy balance there.
Yeah, I was when you had jumped out, I was like, wow, like that takes a lot of faith. But then just looking back to working with you, it didn't surprise me. I saw that in your planning already when you were at the corporate firm that we were with. You implemented that into your planning already. And just as a person and a relationship that I had with you, I knew that's where you already had your alignment was your faith came first. So when you jumped out at first, I was like, man, that's risky. But then I said, that's Josh. And it's going to work out for him because he's going to lean on God and God's taking care of him and his family.
Yeah, so in the fall of 23, as I felt the Lord calling me to make the jump, one of the scripture pieces that kept coming up was Psalms 25, 4-6. Basically, show me the way, O Lord, point out the road for me to follow. And I heard that on a podcast as I was walking and praying one day, and then it just kept coming up. I heard it in various podcast episodes. It came up in my daily devotions and Bible reading plan on the Bible app. It was pretty evident that that's what the Lord was telling me to do. And for the first time in my life, to be honest with you, I was extremely vulnerable and just trusting the Lord that He was going to do what He promised He would do, and what He was asking me to do, I was going to do.
Yeah, that's really neat. And to watch you already sitting in on some client meetings with you, to watch how you truly are friends with your clients. You probably couldn't do that with 388 clients,
Yeah.
but now that you have around 50 that you're servicing, you guys are friends and you ask about their family and you know so many things about them, every one of your clients.
Yeah.
And that just amazed me because that's not what I saw where I was prior.
Yeah, one of my favorite clients always likes to say we're doing life together. And
Yeah.
that to me is what a true financial planning relationship should be. We're all doing life together. We learn as much from clients as they learn from us in certain aspects of life, and it's been a real treasure, and I'm really excited. It doesn't feel like work when we get up every day. It feels like a true passion.
Yeah, when you're talking to your friends, just providing some expertise in your area. I mean, to be able to walk alongside and help them and provide scriptural references and values into the planning. You're exactly right. It doesn't feel like work, but he takes care of us. So
Yeah. Yeah. Let's talk a little bit about the podcast because I want the listeners to know what to expect for future episodes. Right now, our current um, schedule for producing these is once a month. We may increase that. But what I'd like to see coming up in future episodes and what I want you to be on the lookout for, we are going to discuss several different financial planning topics and arenas. We're actually going to open it up in some way, shape, or form for questions for listeners. We can allow them to kind of drive some of the content moving forward. But some of those topics and areas are going to be obviously investing. We're going to talk about investments, right? Like that's the exciting, sexy piece of financial planning, how to align your faith with your investments. But we're also going to talk about things like tax planning, generous giving, I can promise you in the corporate space, that doesn't come up a whole lot when you're working with a wirehouse advisor, because they get paid to manage the asset, and the more asset they manage, the more they get paid. But at Full of Grace, because we're, fee only, we want to encourage our clients to be generous givers. Society tells you to wait until you die on a pile of money, leave it to your kids to fight and argue over. We challenge that thought. We think that it makes sense to be generous givers throughout your life, not only so you can experience seeing the joy from those gifts, but also feel the generosity as it happens. Business planning, we work with a lot of faith-driven, faith-based business owners. How to plan for succession, how to plan to sell your business or to exit it, how to make sure that your existing business is super efficient. So investing, tax planning, business planning, generous giving, also estate planning. Most people are walking this earth right now without an estate plan. They don't even know they need one, why they need one. So we're going to do an episode or two on that just to explain to you why that might be something you need. Debt pay down and debt strategies. What does the Bible say about debt? Right? Proverbs 22:7 says the rich rule over the poor. The borrower is slave to the lender. Does that mean we should never borrow money? Some of the big talking heads like Dave Ramsey and others would probably tell you yes. I feel like the Bible gives us pretty specific instruction on debt, but I don't believe that it tells us to never borrow. So debt will be another topic. So I'm really excited to see where this podcast goes, the episodes. Hopefully it's a resource. We're trying to make it around that 20-minute mark so that, you can listen to it during a lunch break or on a walk or during your workout. And our goal for each episode will be for you to glean or take away 2 to 3 actionable items for your own personal finances to help you improve. And ultimately, the goal is I think everyone deserves an opportunity to align their faith with their finances and to have a financial plan. We clearly can't work with every single person in a personal client advisor capacity. This podcast is our opportunity to reach the masses and provide that biblical guidance when it comes to finances to many, many people as it gets shared and listened to.
You mentioned generous giving, and that's a huge piece of what we talk about in our meetings. And just one quick thing that I saw from a client that you met with about a month ago received a really big bonus. And his first question to you was, hey, who can I give this to? And he gave more than 10%, helped a family member, gave to the church, gave to an organization. And that was somebody that was around my age. And that was something that will always stick with me. It was a very sizable bonus. And he was like, hey, I want to give away a big portion of this. And those are the conversations we love having. And some of the clients that we already have just have such a generous heart. And it's just really cool to see.
Yeah, that's a great example. He's early 30s. Is he a millionaire? No, he's not. But just holding true in abundance and what the Bible tells us about being generous givers. That was one of the cooler conversations we've had here in the last couple of years.
Yeah, that was really cool. Just to hop in new to the firm and just see that. And that already shows the conversations that you're having are being impactful. So that's really cool to see.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, that'll wrap up this episode. We really just, thank you for joining and listening. We hope that you'll subscribe to the podcast. So as we're putting out new content, you have access to it. We're excited about this. And we really just wanted to take this first episode, Luke and I, to share the vision of the podcast so you know what to expect. But please, if you want to learn more about who we are, Full of Grace Financial, check out our website at www.fullofgracefinancial.com. Check us out on LinkedIn, Facebook. We are trying to be accessible for the most part to people. We'd love to have a conversation with you. Shoot us a DM if that's what you kids say these days, or direct message of some sort. I'm showing my age, but thanks for listening. Please share this. We'd love to be a resource to anyone and everyone who's interested in aligning their faith with their finances. Have an awesome day and be blessed.